So in this segment, we're going to have a listen to this expert about GB energy and kind of decarbonisation. And yeah, it's a bit dicey for anyone who's kind of pushing the line about GB energy. And we'll discuss how apparently, according to Starmer, it's not an energy company; it's an investment vehicle, which is another thing entirely. So let's have a listen.
Explain for me whether you support this Labour plan and how would it work?
Well, like all electioneering, the story to be told is one of all gain and no pain. And the reality of the long-term nature of energy is that reality is somewhat different. I mean, what we're being offered, and the Conservatives similarly in this game, is we're being offered a world in which we're going to really fast track decarbonisation of electricity. We're going to finish the job in 5 years. In my view, pretty much impossible. We're going to have a huge investment programme, and by the way, your bills are going to go down as well. And when something sounds too good to be true, and it almost always is in these kind of election discussions, it probably is. The reality is that, although bills may have gone down a bit this year, to carry the programme forward that needs to be done for net zero is a huge cost. And it's simply not true that we're all going to benefit from cheap energy anytime soon.
And so, when Starmer talks about, £400 going off bills, he doesn't really explain is that, £400 per quarter or per year or whatever. It's clear that, based on what this expert is saying, he's kind of pulled that number out of thin air. It's not even clear how GB energy is going to work. I did watch Phil's video on it, and I think he was saying that they would basically sell the energy to the national grid, which I found okay, but how does that? It doesn't really help the average voter, the average energy user that much. So again, it's a bit strange, to be honest with you.
Great British Energy, well, it's another institution in what's now an extremely crowded space. But the telling thing about Great British Energy, for all the noise and the websites, etc., is its budget is absolutely tiny. And what's more, it depends on the oil price staying up, because it's going to be paid for by windfall taxes from North Sea oil production. And of course, oil prices can go down as well as up.
And I think once the kind of Russian invasion of Ukraine ends, and if the sanctions ever end on Russia, I think we will see oil prices kind of come down a good amount, because I think Russia would want to export a lot of oil, and obviously it's dependent on OPEC as well, on what they do, because they can artificially lower or increase the oil price at any time, and so that there is that. So. And with the windfall tax as well, we don't know how long these companies are going to make these kind of unexpected profits for as well. So that's one of the other things. Over the last couple of years, we have seen an extraordinary increase in the price of energy. We are being price gouged, but I don't think that will last forever. To be fair, we live in a country where the wholesale energy cost has come down, but we're still paying stupid money for our energy. So, who knows at this point?
There's no explanation of what happens to its funding if the windfall tax turned out not to deliver this relatively small 6 billion or so over the entire Parliament going forward.
Wow, 6 billion over 5 years for an energy company, that's not a lot. And it's not even clear if GB Energy will own the assets or how it's exactly going to work, because if they're going to use that money to build wind turbines, I don't know how many wind turbines and solar farms you can build for that amount of money. It sounds like a lot, but it really isn't.
So how long do you think it could take to get to a sort of net zero economy?
Well, the difference between a net zero economy and net zero electricity, which is the target for 2030, and this announcement from Labour is all about electricity. We're aiming for net zero for the economy by 2050. That's 25 years away. But the idea that we can get to completely decarbonising the electricity system, and that means either getting rid of the gas, which is about the most important generator of power within 5 years, or completely switch to carbon storage for that gas in that period, it's just not plausible. The Conservatives are committed to 2035 for that. And again, I think that's a very, very long ask.
This is one of those weird things where they'll set a target and then they'll do no work towards the target, and they'll just move the target. That's what they did last time, where they, instead of building, more clean energy and, more kind of creators of green energy, they just kind of left it and didn't care. It's very strange.
And we need a new transmission system in order to bring all this renewables onto the system. It's low density, intermittent, geographically dispersed, etc. And we haven't really started on that job yet. These things, I'm afraid, take time. And if you try and put 5 bricks on the accelerator and really rush to the deadline, in this case 2030, you're probably going to make it even more expensive than it otherwise would have been.
Labour have...
Because obviously, you're paying for more over the short term, I think, and companies will charge you more if you're asking them to do a tremendous amount of work, over a short period of time.
Of course, have cut the budget for their green priorities. Do you think that is wise? Do you think we are, as a nation, and looking at the political parties' pledges, spending enough on this whole agenda in order to achieve change quickly enough?
Well, Labour did have a coherent framework, even if the target is, in my view, not achievable. And that involves spending a lot of money. That was the 28 billion, and that's a serious sum of money. And if you start spending that per annum, you might get somewhere near the sorts of costs that would be.
So we're talking the difference between 6 billion over a parliament versus 28 billion every year, which was the original pledge, and even that may not have been enough, but it would have got us, a decent way there based on what he's saying. And so, for Labour to ditch that pledge, despite what you think about, the increased borrowing costs, etc., it would have created a lot of jobs and it would have been really good for this country. And that's one of the reasons why I'm kind of mad they dropped this pledge. And if it was a question of affordability and stuff, they never should have made it in the first place, given that these people are never comfortable with government spending, government borrowing.
Be involved. But once you decide, we're going to do it all, we're not going to change our objectives, but somehow we just don't have the money, then you get to this lack of credibility in the programme. And that's really dangerous because to date, apart from this very sharp target, which I'm sure, after the election, if Labour win, they'll say, we've opened the books and it's much worse than we thought. And we thought we were going to do this. We meant to do it. But, we can't quite achieve what we said we were going to do. I'm sure that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, I think he's right, because there's no way they'll be able to achieve, I think it's clean electricity by 2030 if they're barely putting any of the money in. It's kind of crazy to me that they think that's achievable. And when we look at what actually GB Energy is, it's kind of nuts because, we were told for the longest this was an energy company, and, we find out it's not.
Let's clarify this funding that you would give. Who would actually be in ownership then of that infrastructure that you're funding in order for GB Energy to actually generate its own energy? Would this be via local authorities? You talked about private sector involvement too, but I'm just trying to clarify the extent to which it would actually be generating its own electricity, and that would all be publicly owned.
Well, no, it'd be an investment vehicle, so not an energy company. So it's an investment vehicle in the energy of the future.
So it's an investment vehicle, and I think No Justice was saying that it's going to be a slush fund, and that if anything does happen to it, what will happen is the taxpayer will bail it out. So an investment vehicle is a financial account or product used to create returns. The term can generally refer to any container investors use to grow their money. So it's going to be a place where, yeah, I think she's pretty much accurate there, that if anything does happen, because it's owned by the taxpayer, effectively, the taxpayer will have to bail it out. So this is just completely different to what was promised originally, especially when, it said Labour's plan for GB Energy. The Labour Party will create Great British Energy, a new publicly owned clean energy company. And this is why there's no point, clinging on to Labour's promises from the past and saying, well, they haven't offered anything new, so therefore this is still policy. Because for me, anything that they haven't clarified on is a doubt, because they've ditched so many core promises that anything they promised before is an absolute doubt. And I would not push to the audience and say this is officially Labour Party policy until we've heard something recent on it. Because, Starmer did promise changing the system so that EU, residents in the UK can vote, and that was thrown out. It's clearly thrown out. And they tried to kind of stealthily do it, but that's what happened at the end of the day, because this guy can't be trusted. So for anyone who's pushing kind of the older Labour policies from last year, literally last September, that's not even a year old, and he's already broken it by stealth by saying, well, it's not an energy company, it's an investment vehicle. It's complete nonsense. The whole concept behind GB Energy is just not that great. Anyways, it should be it shouldn't be an investment vehicle. It should be a company that owns assets, and the benefits of that go back to the taxpayer. That's what should be happening, but that's not it. But anyways, I'm gonna leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe, support the channel on Patreon if you can, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.